All right, welcome everybody. We're going to get started in a couple seconds, just give a little bit more time as we're just at about 11 o'clock. Very excited to bring Brittany Raposa to you all. She has a great presentation to talk about virtual learning. We'll give a little bit of more time. One thing I will say before we get started, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can at any point put it in the Q&A section. On my screen, it's on the bottom. Sometimes it's on top, depending on what device you're using. But you can punch those questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to any that we have at the end of the presentation, but don't feel the need to essentially wait till the very end to send those in. My name is Josh. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations. We're continuing to bring these Corsair Chats on various topics, just to essentially bring you back into the loop and share the various expertise that we have in both our alums, faculty, and staff. As I said earlier, I am excited to introduce Brittany Raposa. As you can see on the title screen, she's actually a double alum. She graduated with a double major in English and Writing, Rhetoric, and Communication in 2012. She then received her JD at UMass Law in 2015. She's currently serves as Director and Professor of Bar Support at Roger Williams School of Law. Happy I didn't mess it up this time, Brittany. I always say the wrong school, but Roger Williams School of Law. And most importantly to me, she is the newly elected president of the UMass Law Alumni Association. So basically she does a lot of stuff and she's very successful, and we're very pumped up to bring her to you all today. So without further ado, I guess Brittany, you can take control, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone who's either watching live or going to be watching later. I'm really excited to be back in the UMass community, and also just kind of to teach at UMass kind of. And so I just feel like I'm brought back, and I'm really happy to be here. And so today's chat, I thought I'd focus on adjusting to virtual learning environment. I think that we all know in the wake of COVID-19 and the pandemic, it's forced us to take either all or some of our classes online, and we don't really know what the future holds. So it could be quite virtual in our future, not only for the fall semester, but who knows for the spring semester too. So I thought this topic was really timely, especially because a lot of students are nervous about adapting and adjusting to an online learning environment. And so I happen to be really involved in learning theory and online teaching and all of that area. So I thought I would talk a lot about some tips on how to adjust to this new normal, as I call it, of the virtual learning environment and learning spaces and classes online. And so it definitely is not, and like I will not tell you, and no one will tell you that it's exactly like the in-person experience, right? So it can be really different in terms of not only just how it feels being on a computer, but there's just different feelings that you get from being on person than online. So there's a sense of community that might feel like it's missing, or there's a sense of communication that feels like it's lacking, or even accessibility that feels like it might be lacking, just because there's this barrier of a computer screen and your resources. And so I'm going to talk a lot about today of how to make the online experience essentially as close as possible to an in-person experience. And how to make online learning as effective as it can possibly be. And so I'll go through some tips for effective online learning, in some ways to avoid distractions. I think it's easier to be distracted at home or on a computer virtually than when you're actually physically in a classroom with a professor in front of you and students around you. So I'll talk about some ways to avoid distractions. I'll talk about the importance of self-assessment and just kind of always doing a check within yourself to see how the online experience is going, and if you need to adapt something or change some part of the way you're approaching classes or you're approaching your online learning. I'll talk extremely a lot about the importance of communication. Communication is always critical in education, no matter if you're in person or online, but it definitely has a heightened importance when you are in a virtual medium. So you want to make sure that you're still fostering and engaging in communication, not only with your professors or with the staff or administration at your school, but also with each other, with your fellow students. And so quickly too, I'll talk about managing stress and mental health. It's a different time, so you're adjusting to this new learning platform, but you're also dealing with a pandemic and there's so much happening. And so talk a little bit about that. And of course, I'll take any questions that anyone has. And so one of my biggest tips, and I think this goes without saying, that online classes should essentially be treated like in-person classes. So you should have the discipline as if you would have in an in-person class. When you are going to class each day at a specific time, you're getting into the classroom at a specific time, and you're ready to go. So you should essentially have your own space, and wherever that space might be is up to you, whether it is at home because you can't really go anywhere else due to social distancing restrictions, or whether it is in a library that you found that you could have access to. But you should treat it as if you're going to that space every day at each time as you would as if it was in person. And you should have the discipline during the class as if you were or would in an in-person class. And then time management also becomes really important because you kind of have a little bit more to juggle. So not being in person, you lose a little bit of the structure, or you lose the feeling of structure that you have for being in person. So I think that we all feel like we definitely have more structure when we have somewhere to go and somewhere to be and something definitively to do. So when I wake up each morning, you know, I get ready for work, I get in my car, I make time to drive there, I get to my office, I've got certain meetings at the certain time, or I have certain classes that I'm going to be in at certain times. And in the middle of classes, I typically go to the library in between classes. So I know I'm going to get my reading or studying done in that period before my next class. And so when we're not in person, I think it just naturally feels like that structure has crumbled. Honestly, that structure needs to be and can be mimicked. And so although you're not getting in your car and driving somewhere, and although you don't have a library time in between classes, you really should create a schedule for yourself that mimics the in-person experience as much as possible. And I'll talk a little bit about scheduling and things like that and how you get yourself organized to mimic that in-person experience. And it's all about, you know, finding that routine study space, finding that safe space to be in where you can best learn and take classes, and also be able to just foster your own learning. And so you want to do everything that you would do even in the real class experience that you would do if you were in person. So you want to still participate to the best you can. Personally, I know it can feel a little bit awkward. Like when I first started teaching online last semester, I would ask a question and then it would be kind of awkward because it's like, who's going to talk? Like, how do they raise their hand? But there's definitely ways to still participate in class, and you should. So whether that's a raise your hand function on an online medium, or whether it's typing in a chat to let your professor know that you're participating or that you would like to speak, or whether it's just an open class and you just can start speaking. You definitely want to make sure you're still participating and staying actively engaged as best you can. Although it might feel a little uncomfortable or awkward at first, once you get past that initial time that you're trying, it honestly then just feels much more normal. When you're in class, you still want to mimic that in-person feeling, right? By taking notes, doing everything like you would in the classroom. So if you were to take lecture notes constantly handwritten, you still want to do that. Or if you were to type your notes, you still want to do that, right? So you want to treat it as if it was a normal class. And of course, and probably really important, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, you still want to be able to ask questions. So if you're confused about something your professor is saying, you still want to be able to ask the question of what they meant. So just because they're in a virtual medium does not mean anything should or does change. So you should still treat the class experience, participating, taking notes, asking questions, the same as if you were in person. So not only is your success dependent upon organization and creating schedules and setting yourself up for success in person, but it becomes more critical online because of those structural issues that we talked about and the feeling of structure crumbling slightly. So you want to make sure that you create a detailed schedule for yourself now more than ever. So honestly, what I tell my students to do at Roger Williams is always on every weekend, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday, map out your week. So map out what your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday looks like. right? And that's everything to the T. So map out when your classes are. That's a really good place to start, right? So map when you're going to take your online classes, or if you're in a hybrid environment, when you're going to do both, when you have online classes or when you have in-person classes. And then start with, when am I going to do my preparation for those classes that I have during the week? So you want to map that out and specifically schedule it for a certain day and certain time. And then maybe when you're going to start studying for classes, right? So maybe on Fridays is the day that I'm going to kind of review what I did for all of my classes so I can internalize it and kind of digest the material. Or if you have a writing assignment, right? Schedule when that's going to happen. And, you know, even schedule your downtime, schedule your lunches, schedule your dinner breaks, schedule your workout time. So create structure for yourself. So the online platform sometimes feels very fluid and it feels like we don't have structure, but you yourself can definitely implement structure. And that starts with a really good schedule for yourself. And so on this slide, I just have like an example of what that could look like. And this is a law school schedule, but you could just replace the law school courses with, you know, an undergraduate course like English or math or sciences or anything like that. So like, and this is what I mean when I say to create that structure for yourself. It's very precise and it's very strict in terms of you kind of set up everything that you do. So I wake up at 7, my alarm goes off at 7. At 7:30, I'm going to do my morning routine, whatever that might be, eat breakfast, shower, whatnot. Maybe at 8:30, I'm just going to check and answer all emails. I'll do that for about a half hour. And then at 9, I'm going to read for one of my classes. And I'm going to set myself up to be doing that for about a half hour to an hour. And then I know I have a lot of reading for this next class, so I'm going to leave myself a chunk of time to prepare and read for criminal law or a class that you have. Then I'm going to take a lunch break, and then right after lunch, I know I've got one of my online courses, and I've got 2 online courses back to back, so I'm going to schedule those out. And then after my second online course, I'm going to take a break. And then at 3:30 after my break, I'm going to kind of go back to my 2 classes that I've taken today, and I'm going to just review my notes and synthesize my notes. I'm going to go back and see, okay, what did I learn in torts? Like, what was the takeaway from these cases or these classes or this class? And what was my takeaway from legal writing? I'm just going to do my takeaways from that class. Then I'm going to take another break. I'll do an at-home workout. I'll take a dinner break. And then at night, I'm going to do some studying in the classes that I've got and some studying in the classes that I need to focus on, you know, whatever classes that may be. And so that's just one day, right? But that sets up so much structure for me. So similar to if I was doing all of this in person and I was going to class and I was going to a library. And then I was taking breaks and going to the gym and having my lunch and dinner breaks. So you really want to create this type of structure for yourself when your environment is not really giving you the structure that you might want from in-person classes and an in-person educational experience right now. And so this is huge. It's really important to do this for yourself every day of the week. So that way you have a plan in place, you don't feel anxiety, right? You don't feel the anxiety of like, oh God, like I'm so overwhelmed. Like I know I could be doing all of this stuff, but what do I do? Like, I don't really have that structure I'm looking for anymore. Well, create your own structure. It also kind of, I think, helps foster some motivation. I know that in online learning, especially when we're in a pandemic and so much happening in the world, it can be really difficult to feel a sense of motivation that you normally would feel if everything was kind of quote unquote normal, whatever normal might be or whatever your normal is. So I think that this also kind of helps you feel motivated, stay engaged, and really continue to work on your goals as a student. And so you want to get that plan in place soon. And so classes might not have started yet, but it's not too soon to start thinking about this. Start looking at your syllabi, right? What syllabus do you have already? What books do you already have? Do your professors already lay out some reading? Can you already tell which days are going to be devoted to which classes? What does your class schedule look like and what's that going to look like? And so you want to set up your schedule to when you're going to watch lectures. If you have a live online class, then that's already going to be scheduled for you. If you're in an asynchronous class, meaning that all of your classes or some of your classes are pre-recorded and it's up to you to watch them on your own time, it's very important to already plan out early on when you're going to be watching those classes. So open the syllabus, check out where your professor's lectures are, how many of them are there, and how do you want to schedule those throughout your week. And so that's really important to do when your classes are recorded. And so also plan when you're going to be doing your reading for class, when you're going to be like digesting that material that you've learned in class, when are you going to be outlining or outlining for your class, or just kind of synthesizing your notes for that class. Are there any papers that you have to write or practice problems that you have to do for class? Or when do you want to take a practice exam, or when do you want to work on the paper that you have to write for class? So getting that plan in place very soon, I think will just ease your nerves, but also it will help give you that structure that you're looking for and that you might not think you're getting with an online experience, but you absolutely can get if you put this plan in place for yourself. Another thing that I think a lot of students worry about is the fact of community, right? It feels like community might be missing. You don't really get to see your friends, or you have to like sit 6 feet apart from your friends, so it already feels weird. Maybe some of you really like study groups or really are interested in study groups, but I would encourage all of you to still do that and make connections and have study groups through a virtual medium. So you could either have a study group through Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, FaceTime, whatever medium you prefer. I definitely recommend utilizing virtual study groups. It's a way to stay connected. It's a way to check in with each other for people who are in the same classes as you, to say, I'm struggling with online. Did you get the same idea from class? And someone can be like, actually, like, I'm also struggling and this is what I got. And you all can come together and kind of figure out and the classes with each other, but also just kind of lean on each other and create that sense of community that you would have in person, and it can just be mimicked online. So I would encourage doing virtual study groups, and even if you don't like studying with people, even a check-in group of friends to hang in and check in with online every so often, just to get that sense of normalcy, communication going, and just to have a person-to-person contact, I think is really helpful in these times where it could feel a little bit isolating because of the pandemic and because we're not always in person with each other physically. Oops. And so another thing that is difficult and that a lot of students ask me about are online distractions. Like, it's really easy to be online. I'm sitting here on my couch. My cute puppy is like over there. My TV is right here. My refrigerator is like 10 steps away. So it's really easy to be distracted, I think, in the online environment. So you want to make sure that you have a study space for yourself that has minimal distractions. If you're going to be doing classwork, try not to have the television on. Maybe put your phone in a different room. Don't take it out. And so you want to be able to avoid physical distractions as much as possible. And I think having a set space that you go to do your classwork and to take your online classes is definitely good, because say you have like a little office space or a corner in your bedroom where you're going to do that. Well, you want to be able to go to other places in your space for downtime, and you don't want to associate every place that you have with school. And so you want to be able to have that one space that has little distractions, and that's also your workspace, so that other spaces in your environment are your kind of hangout space and your decompressing spaces. And then online learning can also be a little bit distracting because of the world of the web, right? It can be, you want to surf the web, you want to do online shopping. I'm guilty of that sometimes. Or you want to go on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and it's really easy because it's just like right in front of you, and your professor's online, so it's like they definitely won't tell if you are on a virtual distraction, so to speak. And so if you're worried about that, there are so many resources available, and these are just a few that I've listed, but there's a lot of resources available at your disposal to minimize those online distractions. There are programs or apps that kind of minimize your ability to do anything else while you're in class. So For example, this program called Self-Control, you can download it and it blocks out any distracting websites for a set amount of time. So you could block that out for your class periods or your study periods. There's track time. It audits how much time you're spending on your computer and what you're spending it on. Concentrate, it minimizes focus while shifting in between tasks. So it does something similar. It will not allow you to be on Facebook while attending class if that's what you set it to. So these are just really helpful. I know that in the spring semester, a lot of my students utilize apps like this or resources like this, and they found it really helpful. And so I also linked here other resources that you can have, but honestly, if you do a quick Google search of like avoiding online distractions or tools for limiting online distractions or websites, so many tools and that are free are available at your disposal. Another thing that you want to be thinking about when you are online learning is just always checking in with yourself to make sure whether your approach to online learning is working. So I put some questions here to always be thinking about when you are in the process week to week of online classes. So you can ask yourself, am I retaining the information that I'm learning online? Am I on the other hand, am I passively attending class online? Am I just sitting there but not really listening and not taking notes and not retaining anything? Am I understanding the material that's presented to me? Are you having trouble understanding what your professor is saying in an online medium just because of that barrier? And if that's true, then you want to seek help for that, right? And you want to seek your professor's help or maybe an academic support help at your school. What questions do I need to ask my professor based on my understanding? So always make a list of questions that you might have so that way you feel comfortable going to your professor or asking these questions. And then finally, what do I need to do differently? So maybe there's something that's just not working. Maybe you need to take more notes in an online class, or maybe you need to utilize a different study space. Or maybe you need to watch your lectures at a different time of day. Maybe you're waiting until nighttime and you're realizing, wow, I really should watch my lectures in the morning because I'm not as effective at night. And so constantly checking in with yourself and assessing how your online learning is going and adapting to what you need is definitely the best way to be successful in an online learning environment. And so constantly check in with yourself, see what needs to change, see what you need help with, and don't be afraid to reach out for help from your professor, from your institution, from UMass. Maybe you need an accommodation from online learning that you didn't realize that you needed, but now we shifted to online and you realize that you're either having trouble seeing something on the screen, or you might need an accommodation that you didn't realize you needed before. And so always check in with yourself to make sure that you know those things, and so that way you can work with your school and really determine how you're going to best set yourself up for success and how you personally can set yourself up for success. So hand in hand with that, not only like checking in with yourself is really important, but talking to each other and your professors is really important. And so one thing I can definitely speak of from experience in teaching online is that there is a difference in terms of how, like, reading a room, right? So like when I'm in a classroom teaching, if I've got 50 blank faces staring at me or 50 furrowed eyebrows, right, I can tell like either they don't have no idea what I'm talking about, or I need to slow down and I need to spend more time on this topic, or they're just lost. It's not as easy to read a room online, right? Your own little squares, and sometimes I can't see all of the squares on the screen. So it's really important to have open communication with your professor and let them know when you're confused about something, if you need them to go over something again, if you need them to slow down, because we're actually looking for that. I would love my students, and they do, and I make it clear, please tell me if something is confusing, or you need me to go over something again, or you need me to slow down, or we need to keep rehashing something out, or if I need to spend more time next class on something because it was a little bit confusing. And so that level of communication is so important, and your faculty is looking for it. And I know I look for it constantly. So you want to be able to tell them when something is confusing. And you want to tell them, for example, right, when they're going too fast, when they need to spend more time on a topic, if you have questions about the material, or if you want them to go over something again. Maybe you personally are struggling with something. So it's still important to attend your professor's office hours. I'm sure they will have virtual office hours. I know that I do. Or you can make a virtual meeting with them. So it's really important to still build those relationships and foster communication with your faculty and staff. You just do so in a virtual medium just like this via Zoom, where you work together one-on-one or in small groups, and you can see each other and you can talk to each other about your concerns, or just to catch up. Some students come to my office hours just to talk about common interests. So I teach reproductive law at the law school. So a lot about what's going on in the world with reproductive rights and reproductive justice. And sometimes students come in just to say, you see that news article, right? So it's just really great to keep communication open and just have that relationship and build relationships with your faculty and staff and each other, with study groups. So remember, networking might be a little tough right now, and building relationships might seem like it's a little bit tough, but you can absolutely do it through online mediums, and sometimes it's easier to do so. I know that it's kind of easier to have these chats online because all you have to do is click a link and you're together. It's actually easier to have events now that are virtual. So you want to attend networking events online. You want to foster communication with your faculty and staff and keep meeting people and building relationships, and also building relationships with each other, your fellow students, forming study groups, or just once a week venting sessions, or whatever that may be. And then finally, you also want to make sure that you're managing stress and taking care of your mental health. There's a lot happening right now in the world. There's a civil rights movement, there's a pandemic. There is a lot of stress and uncertainty surrounding everything with the future of your classes being online or whether they're not. There's the stress of just being in college. That's kind of stressful as it is. And then when we add all of these layers, right, it's just we're peeling back a bunch of layers of stress. And at the end of the day, you really want to be able to take care of yourself. And you're not going to be the student you want to be, or you're not even going to be as effective as you want to be if you're not the best person that you can be. And in order to be that, that's managing your stress and taking care of your mental health. So you want to make sure you're taking the time to step away from the screen, right? There is such a thing as Zoom fatigue and screen fatigue. Now we're going to be living online a lot. And so we're constantly staring at screens. And so you want to take a step back and enjoy some time outside or at the gym, or if you can't go to the gym, do a home workout, take a walk. So you want to kind of get away from it all and get away from the virtual world sometimes, because that can really help mental health. It's important to keep engaged with the news, but if you feel like it's so overwhelming, just kind of cut back sometimes and just kind of read the news when you think necessary, or maybe limit it to one day a week, just to make sure that your mental health is not too jeopardized by what you might be reading. And then of course, there are a bunch of other suggestions you could do: meditate, yoga, read books, pleasure books, maybe not for school related books, watch a movie, watch television, make sure you stay engaged with your friends and family, play board games, anything that you can do to step away from everything going on and step away from this virtual environment can be really important. And of course, you can reach out to the services at your school if you need someone to talk to. They could perhaps help. So just make sure that you're always looking out for yourself. And at the end of the day, you're not too consumed in this virtual reality that we are in, and you're also taking a step back to focus on yourself too. So that's really important. And so that's kind of all I had for the talk. I know I talked about a lot of tips and I talked about a lot of stuff, but I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Great. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, cool. For some reason, I can't see myself, but that's okay. It's probably better for everybody. That was amazing.
I can see you now. now.
Oh, you can? Okay, cool. I might
Yeah.
myself, but that's okay. That was great. I think you just laid out a successful playbook for how to adjust, and not only for current students. A lot of that stuff I was sitting here. I wish I could show you my notes I was taking because I can apply that to my job in a virtual, just doing my general job. So thank you for that. That was great. The only questions we have were, what are some advice you could give to parents or guardians to help with their student success? I know you gave a lot of tips, but is there any other support that like a parent should be involved in? I know you might not deal with that as much in the law school, but for some of our undergraduates.
Yeah, so we actually deal with that in the law school, and we actually had a session for parents, just because I think every student, right, comes from a different place. Some parents are more, I don't want to use the word needy. So not needy, but essentially like maybe reliant on their children a lot. And so I think it's important to share your schedule with your parents to make sure that they do not, that they know when you're going to be in class, and that they know when you're going to be doing schoolwork. So you can also create boundaries with the people that you live with, whether that's not even parents. Maybe you live with a roommate who's not even in school and just like wants to like hang out all of the time, or maybe and I know that this happens, maybe you live in a home with like 10 people in it and it's not that big. And so you just want to make sure, one, that you have a space that can be your own for that time period. And communication is really important, I think, with the people that you live with, and making sure that they understand how difficult it can be, how distracting it can be, if it's noisy around you during class, or if they're trying to constantly get your help with something while you're trying to do classwork. So I think communication and having a sit-down conversation is really important. And then for parents and people you live with, I think making sure the student in your household, you want them to be successful. So I think that giving them that space to do schoolwork and being supportive and not pressuring them to do things while they have class or doing classwork is really helpful.
That was amazing. Yeah, and that, oh, hold on a second. We think we got something that popped up right now.
We did, yeah.
It was very good information and tips. What advice can I get if my professor is not useful for understanding the material in the class? Okay, so I would reach out directly to say that I would probably go to student affairs to get additional support. That would be my advice. I know it's not, Brittany doesn't teach at UMass, so hopefully at some point she will. But I think that would kind of be the answer that I would give.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Like, I don't know, at the law school, we call it like academic support, but like student affairs is the equivalent to an undergrad experience of like a student support and academic support. I also think you could reach out, and I don't know if this is applicable to that professor, but if they have a TA, they could maybe give you some help. If they have a teaching assistant that works with them who might be an upperclassman, that could also be helpful for support for that class.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think one thing to remember too is our faculty members are changing and adjusting to a new way of learning too. So I think one of the things that Brittany hit that was amazing was just the importance of communication with that faculty member. I mean, reach out and let them know. Give them the opportunity to fix the issue that might be occurring because of a new medium of learning.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to go to student affairs. If you think that professor's not being that helpful, the chances are is that other people are also struggling. So if you go to student affairs, maybe they could also talk to that professor and let them know, hey, students are struggling. So that professor might just not, that professor might think that they are being helpful, but they aren't understanding the barrier of online and how you might be struggling a little bit more. So I think just that communication with your administration and with your faculty members is definitely the way to go.
Okay, great. That was amazing. I cannot, that was great. I learned a lot, and I appreciate your time for coming here and sharing that with us.
It was fun.
Yeah, you did great, and we avoided any technical issues, which was always a plus. So from the entire UMass community, and especially the Alumni Relations Office, we appreciate you, Brittany. We can tell why you are so successful because that was a very good Corsair chat. And hopefully everyone who's on here got to listen. We'll send everyone on a survey. If you have any other questions or topics that you'd like to hear, please don't hesitate to share with us. And again, thank you so much for your help, Brittany. Brittany, geez, call you Britt already.
It's okay. A lot of people call me Britt.
Okay, we'll go there with it. All right, thank you. Stay safe, everybody.